There is a city in the northern Levant that should not exist. It stands at the edge of the gates of hell and is the last great stronghold of the faithful in the region. The church calls it the home of all our hopes, and its name is New Antioch. To understand why it matters, you first have to understand why it existed in the first place and its current form. The old city of Antioch was ancient, fortified in the year 1102, in the first decades of the war. For more than 400 years, it was the shield of the Levant. And during those years, it took the first blow of every erotic offensive into the region. Then, in 1545, it was destroyed. The weapon that brought about its destruction was infernal in kind. But what that weapon was exactly, the church has never reviewed. And this recording cannot confirm it either. What this recording can confirm is what happens afterwards. Antioch was not captured. Neither was it occupied. It was erased from existence. All that remained was a crater, and from that crater rose demonic essence so foul that none should have been able to live near it. The faithful did not retreat. Instead, they held the ruins. They held them in poisoned air, held them as Constantinople fell nearby, taken by the legions of Chimaris, twice damned marquis of hell. An empire 1,000 years old, dying just over the horizon. And still, the garrison stayed, in the rubble, in the poisoned air, because that ground mattered, and leaving was not an option for the sake of humanity. They held for 14 years. Then, in 1559, the faithful nations met at the Sword Congress of Vienna. There, they agreed on one thing. A foothold in the Levant had to be kept, no matter the cost, if only to deny hell, the whole region. Saw the rebirth. And they did not build somewhere safer. Rather, they built on the same crater. The new city rose directly over the blast, and a great concrete dome was raised over its center. Strengthened again and again over 3 centuries. Another part of the reason are the anchorites, sealed inside the walls themselves. Each one was a shrine of metal, with a devoted soul sealed within its confines and entombed in the wall itself, keeping watch day and night, without rest and without end. The wall please home to hundreds of them. Later, the city's engineers took that same idea and made it move. The machine armor worn by New Antioch's elite soldiers were built from uncredited design, a devoted soul sealed in a shrine of war, but walking rather than standing still. These anchorites remain in those walls to this day, watching over the faithful and repelling any attack from no man's land. Each of the 8 sieges of New Antioch is a story this recording will return to, but one in particular is worth telling now. The 3rd siege of New Antioch, fought in 1721. A siege so great that it was broken only by a relief force unlike any other in the history of the city. The armies of Sultan Ibrahim of the Iron Sultanate arrived to relieve it, and with them came warriors from the east, from the lands of Tulak, also from the west Himli fleets of the Potbar state. The implications of what this meant could not be understated. A Muslim sultan, warriors from the Indian subcontinent, and the navy of the church itself, all together at the same wall, fighting side by side in the name of humanity. These are powers that have never trusted each other and have had every reason to stand apart. And yet, they came together anyway, because the alternative was watching the last fortress of the faithful fallen in the Levant to the armies of the 7-headed courts. This is how a new Antioch survives, not through the strength of one nation, but through the willingness of many to forget their divisions and differences when the darkness closes in. This recording has seen this before, and it will see it again, for it may be the only tale that is hard to picture. It is always at war, always under threat, always building weapons, making armor, feeding armies and playing host to a workforce drawn from across the entire fitful world. So how is it paid for? The answer is the tithe. At the same council in Vienna, the faithful nations made a promise. Every year, each nation would send 1/10 of everything it earned to keep New Antioch alive. Not once or every year, forever. And that tithe is rarely paid in coin. It comes as an endless river of supplies, food, tools, ammunition, weapon, machinery, skilled workers and engineers, all of it moving towards the city from across Europe, across the seas, and from the African dominions. This is the lifeblood of New Antioch, and keeping it alive is a war on its own. Heretic raiders entered the caravans and the ships without pause. The supply lines tithe and battle fought every day for the last 300 years, and at its center is a coin. The golden ducat of New Antioch, the most traded currency the faithful have. Each ducat carries the face of the coin's duke on one side, and on the other, the crest of the nation who pays for it. That coin tells you exactly what New Antioch is. Neither a nation nor an empire, but a shared project, kept alive by every faithful power at once. New Antioch does not belong to itself. It belongs, piece by piece, to everyone who cannot afford to let it fall. Inside its walls, the city never stops, never sleeps. Factories roll out tanks straight from the workshop floor, foundries burn white forts through every hour of the night, feeding the artillery that is the pride of the city. But that work has a price. Thousands of workers die in New Antioch every year. They die in accidents, from exhaustion, worn down by a city that cannot afford to slow its machines, not even to save the people running them. But New Antioch builds statues in their honor. Great monuments to the foreign workers stand across the city, not to the soldiers, but those who work in their factories. To the thousands who die each year in their foundries, keeping the war fed and the faithful safe behind shells and explosions. This recording implores the listener to find that worthy of person. In New Antioch, the line between soldier and worker has almost vanished. For to work here is to serve and die at the foundry for the cause. Deep in the laboratories of New Antioch, the church does its strangest and most secret work. This recording would tell it plainly, for the facts need not be hidden nor shamed. Since the war began, the faithful have faced one problem they cannot solve. They cannot strike back at the hearts of the enemy with any significance purpose. The gate is too powerful, and to even come near it is impossible for all but the strongest and most faithful souls. To an ordinary soldier, no matter how brave, these gates are overwhelming and detain them long before they reach its shattered shores. Their minds shattering like fragile glass, open to horrors unspoken that no human mind should bear witness to. And so, the faithful resort to defending their positions and holding their bastions. But they understand with biting fury that they cannot match on the one place itself that is grinding them to dust. For the legions of hell are near infinite, and the forces of man Alexander slowly being washed away in blood and gore. The church, however, has found an answer, strange as it may be. The church has cloned the Christ. This recording will repeat again, for the listener may not grasp the gravity of what is being done. In the labyrinths of the faithful, by methods this recording cannot fully explain, nor thankfully understands, the church has made copies of the Redeemer. They are called meta-Christs, and there are only a few. For by every account from the office of the propagation of virtue of New Antioch, they are truly holy. The sacred nature of the original kept completely. For their flesh and blood are used to make soldiers. When an unwilling volunteer consumes the flesh and drinks the blood of a meta-Christ, they begin to transform. He or she grows to enormous sizes. Their wounds begin to close on their own, healing at a rate faster than anything the human body should be capable of. And they become something more than human, something filled with the divine lessons they have taken in. They are called communicants. There is one more detail in this recording that has to be explained, for it belongs to the world that made these beings. After the change, a communicant sees more clearly when blinded, and so blessed causes are driven straight through their eyes. They allow it. In fact, they welcome it, because to them it is seen as the highest act of faith. On the battlefield, communicants break lines and guard the holy. They walk through fire that would kill an ordinary man 10 times over. They reach the enemy and set them apart with weapons no mortal soldier could even attempt to lift. And they are among the deadliest soldiers the faithful have. Whether any of this is right, the church still argues among itself. For to clone the Redeemer, to eat his flesh in the laboratory instead of sacraments, to drive crosses through the eyes of the faithful, and send them into fires no mortal man should ever come across, is strange. None of it is viewed as normal. The city and its armies answer to the Duke of New Antioch, the current Duke being Constantine the 11th. That name carries weight, for in the world before the gates appeared, hell was nothing more than the dire warnings of the holy priests of the church, a fight for humanity's soul, and Constantinople was a fortress of the faithful. However, with the coming of the gates and hell's incursions into the world of humanity, it too was bound by the legions of the thrice damned Marquis of Hell, Gemaris. But with the rise of New Antioch and the faithful's bulwark against the darkness, the Duke of the last great fortress of the faithful carries the name of the last defender of a fallen empire. The title of Duke is the most honored in the faithful world, for its bearer is the supreme commander of all the faithful armies. That word, however, supreme, needs to be taken carefully. Soldiers come to New Antioch from all across Christendom. They swear fealty to the Duke, and yet in practice, each nation fights in its own units, under its own leaders, and by its own orders. The Duke commands in name, and the armies he commands are a coalition, not a single body or a fighting force. It holds together to shared purpose, not shared command. A few go further, giving up their old countries entirely, taking up the cross and serving the Duke alone. But they are rare. Even so, the armies of the principality are the single greatest force the faithful can put in the field, and those who stand on its walls wear their colors with pride. There is a second way New Antioch fights, and it explains much about the lands around the city. In recent years, the Duke has begun sending small forces into no man's land. They gather intelligence, hunt for the lost artifacts of power, raid heretic positions, seize key ground, and scavenge the battlefields for the coin and weaponry that 800 years of war have left scattered across the waste. These forces are called war bands, and here is the key. They are not regular soldiers. The Duke gives them a commission and nothing more. Then, they must raise their own money, gather their own fighters, while he points them at the duck and lets them survive or die on their own. What keeps them coming, however, is ambition. This recording has done its best to explain what New Antioch is. A city built on the crater of its predecessor. Walls that have never fallen, watched by agonizing souls sealed within them. A war machine fed by the tithe of every faithful nation. Run by workers who die by the thousands and are remembered in stone. Laboratories where the church clones its God and feeds him to its warriors. A coalition of armies under a duke named for a falling empire's last leader. And an endless stream of war bands sent into the dark, most of whom, unfortunately, never return. The flag still flies over its walls, red as the blood of those who shed it to keep it standing. This recording sets down one last fact, the one that matters most right now. The reports, they all agree. The scouts and the intelligence from no man's land, the omens read by those whose task is to read them, they all say the same thing. The heretics are gathering for the largest offensive in the history of this war. New Antioch has survived 8 great sieges, but what is coming may be larger than all of them combined. And this recording must state, with all honesty, what the city's own commanders believe in private. New Antioch cannot survive the full united strength of hell. It has never had to. For its 300 years of brutal existence, the lords of hell have never stayed united long enough to bring their whole might against the city at once. They hate each other too much, scheme against one another, on their court each other's attacks, and they would not cooperate long enough to land the final blow. New Antioch has always survived, not because of its walls, but because its enemies could and would not stop fighting themselves. And that is not the foundation this recording would cause if. The board, however, is set. The pieces are moving. 800 years into this war, after decades of uneasy quiet, the great powers of hell are steering once more towards something. And the last fortress of the faithful stands where it has always stood, at the edge of the gate's shadow, waiting to learn whether the night siege is the one that finally brings it down and heralds the true ending of humanity. The great war for the salvation of mankind continues.